Well, the Nigerian film industry is a gold mine waiting to be tapped, with piracy identified as one of the major obstacles hindering the sector from realizing its potential. This is from a report by the financial derivatives company. Now, the FTC has also stated that the Nollywood industry is the world's second largest movie industry by volume, surpassing Hollywood and coming just short of India's Bollywood. It pointed out that Nollywood does not surpass both the Hollywood and the Bollywood in terms of production quality or return on investments. Well, joining us this morning to discuss ways of telling our history with Nollywood movies is Nigerian filmmaker BIODUN Stephen. It's great to have you on the show this morning, BIODUN Stephen. So let's begin with that fact. You know, the fact that after Hollywood, Bollywood, the next in line, is Nollywood in terms of production quality and returns of investment. But in terms of volume, it just falls behind Bollywood, coming in second. In fact, the name actually came from foreign watchers of the industry. It is said that Nollywood is an untapped gold mine. And we just saw the Academy say that, hey, Pidgin English is officially a foreign language. You can come in with your content and you can be nominated for an Oscar. How do you think we can actualize our potential as an industry to see that we are reaching for the fullest?
Thank you very much for having me on the show this morning. When you say Nollywood is an untapped gold mine, I think that we're already tapping into that gold mine. There is opportunity for growth, opportunity for skill, opportunity for employment. And we've had, of course, to have great talent to show the world. So definitely that gold mine is being tapped. Do we need to tap it more? Oh, definitely. And what do we require, to achieve this? I would think funding, access to loan, long-term loans and access to funding. More importantly, infrastructure. Because one of the things that we lack in the industry would be the right infrastructure in terms of finance, in terms of sets, locations, film villages, things to also kind of ease filmmaking, and more importantly, friendly government policies that would attract more investment and investors, into the industry. There's a lot to still be tapped. Already we are tapping it, but there's still much more to be tapped. And I think that if we have access to funding, to infrastructure, and more friendly government policies, I think that we're right on our way.
Well, you've basically, in a way, answered my next question, but let me just still, you've not got all of them together, so I want to be able to milk out of you as much as possible. You talked about the major factors. You can add minor factors hindering this industry from being tapped fully. Like you said, is being tapped already. Now, the question I want to ask you is, have you sat down with your colleagues and thought about how these factors can really be eliminated? And where does the government come in? You mentioned some to help with eliminating these factors.
I feel like the government can come with more, by encouraging investments by more friendly governmental policies. Policies in terms of, taxing, in terms of long-term loans with single-digit interest, which already, is in place in some places, and then also creating, one of the major issues is the location of filming. And a lot of my colleagues and myself are beginning to create our own mini studios, to kind of ease filming. Most of us are aware of the issue of filming in and around. If you film in Lagos, it's becoming more and more difficult every day to film on the roads, in certain spaces, because there are issues of, area boys constantly demanding, and the idea that people just assume that there's so much money to be made in the industry. So everywhere you go, you are demanded to pay. So I feel like if the government set up these infrastructures and more friendlier policies, it would attract definitely more investors to want to put their money into the industry. And of course, that would automatically, trickle down to us and increase more capacity for us, because Nollywood, believe it or not, is a very high, employer of labor. We have a lot of people, and it's one industry that you necessarily do not need to have a specific skill. You just need to have a zeal and a passion, and you can learn on the job to act in some certain roles. So I think that if the infrastructures that would ease, filmmaking is being created, friendlier government policies. I think it would make it easier for us. And that also being said, that a lot of our colleagues are beginning to set up these mini studios to kind of speak into all of this, some of these challenges that we have as filmmakers here.
All right. Now, still speaking of some of those challenges that we have and how we can capitalize on some of those things, let's bring in Netflix into the fold. I think that has really helped us. How would I put it? It has opened another line, another channel for growth and success within the Nollywood industry. Now, we have begun to see more strategic partnerships, between Nollywood and Netflix. So how would you assess the impact of streaming, especially within the COVID-19 pandemic? Because we saw a lot of the films that were released during the pandemic end up on streaming services. So how would you assess the impact of streaming and the possible future impact of streaming on Nollywood as an industry?
I think that this, SVOD platforms are in a way responsible for the growth and the world showcase of Nollywood. The streaming platforms have been able to make it possible for our content to be appreciated, not just within our shores, but outside, of our shores. And definitely with COVID also, in as much as it grounded, it also played a huge impact in Nollywood in terms of people were stuck at home and you had to experience some of these stories that we had. And we're grateful to these people, and we do know that, and I feel like just because Netflix and the likes have also been able to give our content that platform, it's also opened us more, globally to the world, and people are beginning to pay more attention, not just that we are just filmmakers, but we are purposeful, we are strategic, and we're intentional, and we are desirous, of growth, which is definitely why the likes of this platform have been attracted and willing to even invest, in the industry.
Intentional is the word, BIODUN, quite interesting. Now, from the times of Kenneth Nebwe's Living in Bondage, The Return of Our Hannah, fantastic film, I just watched it 2-3 days ago, to Mo Abudu's Wedding Party, then you have Kunle Afolayan's Figurine. What can you say about the development over time of Nollywood?
I mean, I think that I said that, and I answered that in the question before. The growth of Nollywood has been very intentional, has been very strategic, and has been very, very purposeful. And I think that that's in regards to, producers, directors, and technical hands, acquiring and improving on their skills. And the result is what we see now, on our screens, in our cinemas. We are beginning, we already have the stories. So it's no longer about us telling the story, but even telling them better, moving from the mundane into doing extraordinary and to doing more. And I really want to, I really want us to commend the growth, because we have done so well. With the little that we have been able to, place this industry, in the global world map. And I think that's encouraging, and we'll keep doing that.
Okay, BIODUN, now I want us to look at the issue of streaming from the point of piracy. There's always been this huge gap between the number of people that would go to the theaters to pay for a movie and the number of people that would just wait. Maybe the movie is going to come out in some adulterated version. They would rather just wait for that adulterated copy to watch. Now, streaming within this mix is almost the same, because you do have to pay to stream. So it doesn't close the gap. Piracy is still an issue. People would still want to find an easy way out. How can we fix this? Because we're evolving, but piracy seems to be a problem that just evolves as we evolve.
I think that with every technology, there's always there would always be those who are looking for the shortcuts. And so, in as much as the streaming platforms, the cinemas, we keep evolving, there will always be an evolvement of piracy. They will always come up with new ways. I mean, I'll give you a case in point. With my first film, Picture Perfect, for instance, it was already pirated. It was leaked, online, and that leak came from the guy who was doing my scoring.
Wow.
Yes. So it would always, maybe somebody, and I'm sure it was a moment, it was a lapse in judgment, a moment of indiscretion. Somebody came in and copied this thing and then put it on. And My second film as well, Joba. I mean, people are making money online, and you keep writing to the show. It's a problem that will always be there, and we'll always keep looking for newer ways to fight it. In regards to the question of the cinema versus streaming, I think that at the point where we begin to take cinema, to take it away from a luxury. So a lot of for some people, they find going to cinema a luxury rather than a form of relaxation. And we need to begin to move it away from that. And some of the ways to do that is by creating more cinemas and more film houses, small film houses in neighborhoods, around. And I think that as well. So when you create all of these cinemas and more film houses, allowing more people to see cinema, to see content watching, not just as a luxury of going to cinema, but as a form of engagement, relaxation, a bonding time, that would also help as well. But this issue of piracy, it's a fight that we'll keep on fighting, to be honest with you. We will keep on, because it will keep evolving as much as we keep evolving with our technology and ways of streaming. That would also evolve. So we also just need to keep working to be ahead, of piracy.
Yeah, BIODUN, it said that birds have learned to fly without perching. So hunters have also learned to shoot without missing.
Book of quotes.
He will keep on improving because it's going to be there. I'm going to take you on two things. The piracy thing, I'm going to take it further. Let's begin with the piracy. I think I've likely forgotten the other one. But let's talk about the piracy thing. There's a report that 30 leading global entertainment companies, such as Netflix, which my colleague talked about earlier on, HBO, NBC, Universal, in collaboration with the Alliance for Creativity and Entertainment, ACE for short. They're joining forces to stop pirates from stealing Nollywood movies and TV shows. Tell us about this collaboration and the organization ACE.
So whilst I don't have the details, the fine print of the detail, but it's important to know that big players are beginning to invest, in our industry. And so it is important that they find ways to protect their investment by fighting piracy. It is important to protect your money, important to protect your content. So this collaboration is very welcomed. And ultimately, it will do us good, as a country and as an industry, and I think that's how I see it.
Interesting. Now let's talk about the funding.
Okay, sorry. I'm not cutting you short.
Okay.
It was before
totally.
Before he runs away again. Yeah, sorry. I remembered it. You were talking about...
Oh, you remember the question you forgot.
I remember this. You talked about, it's quite interesting. You talked about small film houses in neighborhoods, So I wanted to ask you, it's interesting, it's good. How are you working, is wanting to meet and talk about an idea about implementation. So are you working towards it? What are you doing about it?
So a couple of us have started building something called the mobile cinemas, where you are able to take the films, to the interlands and, give them the dwellers of these places an opportunity to see what is being cooked, in their country, and of course open their eyes to the many opportunities, that are lying in the industry. So there are mobile cinemas. Some of us are going into universities. A lot of work is being done to try and get. But what is most important is, to get as many eyeballs to see the content, because really we're not making as much money if as many people, with a population of over 200 million people, and barely 50 million is seeing your film, there's still a lot more to be done. And some of us are already, in place of doing that by creating mobile film houses, putting the film on a truck and beaming to the villages and to the small towns.
Wow, that'll be interesting.
I know. I mean, for me, I think that, because the thing is, everyone wants to get a piece of that pie. And when it's not accessible to some, like you said, they will find a way, because at the end of the day, they want to be part of what everyone is talking about, whether it's Picture Perfect, Ovi's Voice, or the wedding party. Now let's talk about the funding, okay? Movie productions in Nigeria oftentimes are funded by independent organizations. Now, we know that there are several funds available to entertainers. We know that Nexim has the Intervention Fund, Bank of Industry has the Nolly Fund, and so on. There are a few funds here and there that entertainers can have access to. So the question is, as a filmmaker, how efficient are these funds? Because we hear about them, but how efficient are they, and how easy to access are they as well?
So Well, I would say that I've heard about the CBN Intervention Fund, and one of the things that it challenges you to do, whilst the funds is available, one of the things that it challenges you to do is to really get your books in order. These funds are available, but you need to have your books in order. And a lot of us, practice buying and selling kind of business rather than, a bookkeeping kind of business. So this business, some of these funds are affordable. They are there, and they are for instance, with the CBN Intervention Fund, it's a long-term loan with a single-digit interest rate and a very decent moratorium. However, to access this fund, you do need to have your books in order, because a lot of documentation is being asked of you. It's not just walk in and walk out. And so it's important that whilst these funds are there, we also need to play our part as producers, as directors, to ensure that, we have access to making sure we get this, by making sure our books are in order.
And of course, they have to do what they have to do, because it's a business. So
yes,
and the CBN has to be sure that you want to take a loan and be able to repay it. So it's not you take a loan and go and buy a car immediately. Some people do that. Instead of doing the film and paying people, you buy a card and you beg people to pay them pittance, and then you don't get to pay them. So that's why the CBN has to do that. I don't know whether we're taking a break now.
Yes, but you know the thing, just before we do that, I know that you have a new film coming out. It's called Introducing the Kujus. So when we get back to the show, we're going to talk about that. For now, let's take a look at that trailer, and we will discuss that film, Introducing the Kujus, directed by BIODUN Stephen, after this.
Don't tell me that you're expecting the rest of the family to come over next weekend.
Who told you that this time will not be different?
Why would it be different?
I say it will be different because I have a plan.
Announcing the arrival of our Tumba money bag. Money stop nonsense. Our Tumba is here.
Are you okay? Where did you find?
Auntie, this is not tourist center. This is Kuju family house.
Something about the way she moves, I can't explain it.
Hey, John Bolotire Wuju. I want you no manners. Bolotire, Amotani.
My name is Chooks, political science major, soon to be bar owner here in Badagry.
You study political science, now you want to be selling kai kai.
Pastor, you don't know these children. They are not innocent at all. They are just pretending.
West wine. Out! Don't wear me, I feel at home, then dear you major. I want them out.
How much water did you put that is making him talk like this?
Well, like 5 spoons.
You have disappointed this family way too many times.
You what? Let me wait. You are the stupid one.
We used to do things together before, now everybody has just gone. Why?
BIODUN Stephen, you make stories. You make very touching stories. The kind of films that will make you start having daydreams in your brain. You start imagining things and yourself in that situation. Picture perfect, Ovi's voice. You do tell good stories, and this is another good one, Introducing the Kujus. So tell us about this movie. It's set to be out in theaters on the 27th of November. I want to know everything from how you came up with the story to the casting. Tell us about that.
So it's not my original story. It was during the COVID period. I've always been somewhat a part of the Temple family. So I got a call from Temple, and they said, "Oh, we have a story, and we think that you can tell it." I was excited because first it's a family story, and it had so many layers. Emotion, comedy, laughter, joys, love. It had all the right ingredients for the kind of story that I like to tell. It was a story that's going to take you on a journey. And more importantly, it was a relatable story. So we got together with my producers, Winnie Opapi and Bisola Ayola, and we sat down, we had a brainstorming session. I remember that our boss, Mr. Oronimbe, said he had this idea, he wanted to tell a family story. And so we all got together and with a team of other writers, and we came up with this story. And, well, We have cooked it, and we are really, really excited to share it with the world.
Only that, BIODUN, I didn't know that you didn't call me to be a part of it.
I know.
I wonder why. I didn't know that you didn't call me to be a part of it, and I'm wondering when I'm going to be on your film.
No, she makes good films.
I'm excited to have you. And now that I know, you'll be getting a call shortly.
I'll be expecting the call. All right. We'll get back to Kuju's, but this is quite important for me. Bringing it closer. Now, the highest grossing Nollywood movie, The Wedding Party, 2016, made just $1.176 million. That's about 453 million naira. India's Dangal, 2016 as well, grossed about 296 million. That's 113 billion naira. The gap is massive. How can we make more? You know, because there's a place I have a question. I'm saying that this industry also puts food on the table of so many young and elderly people alike, and that's huge. So how can we make more?
I think first is to understand that it will be an unfair comparison.
Yeah,
because India has over 1 billion population, and we are just a little over 200 million. We're talking about eyeballs here. India has thousands of cinemas. And not just cinemas, but we're talking about tens of thousands of screens. We don't even have up to 100. We have up to 100 or 200 screens yet. So it would be an unfair comparison because there's population disparity, and then of course there's cinema infrastructure disparity. But more importantly, even if we decide to do a comparison, if we do a per capita comparison, you would realize that we didn't do so badly. Can we get more eyeballs? Yes, which also brings us again to what I mentioned earlier about creating more cinema infrastructure, getting the films to as many eyeballs as possible. 200 million people is a lot, and so barely 50 million of that is seeing what we are creating. We can. There's an opportunity, there's a potential to do more, to get more, to make more. We just need to set up these infrastructures in place and getting the films to as many people as possible, particularly in the interlands, people who are not in the cities, in the major cities. And just even in the city here, if you live in Lagos, and it's been a terrible time recently with traffic. So if you are living in Songo, for instance, you don't want to make the journey to Abulegbawe, which is the closest cinema. So we need to kind of create this, if not even big cinemas, film houses where people can walk in, and be a part of this Nollywood movement.
It's really nice to go to cinemas and watch movies, I tell you.
I know,
the atmosphere,
it's
and
quite relaxing.
You take your quite relaxing. You take your popcorn. It's really nice.
It is. Now, briefly, before we let you go, Picture Perfect. You mentioned a series was coming out of that at some point in time.
Yes.
And that was a good movie. It's going to be good to see what Jobba's up to. Where are we on that series?
Well, we filmed season 1 and 2. Season 1 has been released on the Iroko platform and currently also showing on Rock TV. Season 2 is set to come out 2021, and season 3, 4, 5 is currently in pre-production. So yes, we are excited to keep telling the Jobba story.
All right.
We can't wait.
I gather we have one more question.
Yeah.
So let's see what we can talk about.
Introducing the Kujus.
Yes.
Nice to talk about.
The movie was shot in Badagry. You had a Badagry. That was where you went to, and that is such.
I'm wondering why Badagry.
Yes, because it has such a rich history. I'm curious as to why you chose that location, especially with the caliber of family you were working with for the film.
I think earlier this year we had the Black Lives Movement. And it was an eye-opener for a lot of us. We've always talked about in the past about slavery and how it relates to the black man. So we decided that not just to set this in Lagos, just anywhere in Lagos, but Badagry, because really Badagry has a lot of history, particularly relating to black lives. And given all of the unrest that we've witnessed throughout the year, 2020 has been an interesting year. We wanted to pay homage to a place that is very, very an important part of our history, in Nigeria, in Lagos, and more importantly to the times of slavery. Because as a matter of fact, from what we heard in history, we heard that a lot of other African slaves were brought to Badagry, and Badagry was always a takeoff point. So we wanted to pay homage to that. And we also want to celebrate not just Badagry, but the beauty of their names. So if you watch ITK, you hear names like Mao Yon, Mao Ugbe, Mao Kwe, Mao Si. I have a thing with names, and so
yes, you do.
So we wanted to play on homage to those names and just explore another side, another culture that we don't really, and Badagry really is Lagos, you know, and that was why we went to Badagry.
Yeah, only we don't have time. When you talked about culture, I was actually, oh, we don't have time.
Yeah, well,
right,
thank you so much.
Don't forget, you must get me your movie.
Yes, you have to get him in the film.
Thank you.
By the way, the movie's out on the 27th of November.
Yeah. It's just 6 days away.
It is. Head on to the theaters. Watch introducing.
Yes. Today is our grand premiere. Today is our grand family premiere. And on the 27th of November, please go out and go see this amazing film. You would love it. It's a authentic family story. You would love it.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try and do it.
Absolutely.
I will hold you guys to it.
I'll do it.
Well,